It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222, your emails at randykabc@gmail.com, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. As you are well aware, I am a subscriber to the YouTube channel of so many things I shouldn't be. Of course, I'm a subscriber to all of our local channels down in Southern California and Northern California. So ABC 7, NBC 4, KCAL, KTLA, Fox 11. I got all those. Then, of course, I'm subscribed to every single politician who's relevant in their YouTube channel, whether it's a campaign channel or their official channel, and also city governments like the city of Los Angeles and the LA City Council meetings and all that nonsense. I'm also subscribed to almost every single California department that would ever have any relevancy on this show or Johnny's show. And that is why I am a subscriber of the California Department of Justice's YouTube page, one of the few. And that means that I am privy to all of the YouTube awareness of Mr. Rob Bonta.
Every type of leadership is about meeting the moment and rising to the occasion. And this is what's required. And so we're stepping up and getting it done.
And usually that YouTube channel is reserved for cliched-filled press conferences where Rob Bonta is announcing that he is suing this and that, or he's just made some big bust, or he's suing the federal government once again. But when I looked on, I got that little blue dot on YouTube that says, hey, there's a new video on this channel. And I clicked on the California Department of Justice. What did I see? I saw a little mini documentary put together by Rob Bonta and his team, funded by your tax dollars. Every single department seems to now have media people embedded in the department, YouTube people embedded in the department, because I'm not sure who this mini movie is for. But since I found it, I figured I might as well share it with you because I found it quite interesting. It was called Housing Justice. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is housing justice? Good question. It's one of the things that Rob Bonta likes to focus on instead of focusing on, I don't know, making sure that criminals stay in prison or that our criminal laws are being enforced and that district attorneys have everything that they need and working with the federal government to prosecute major cases. No, 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 no. Housing justice is the California Department of Justice's wing that sues cities if they aren't in compliance with Gavin Newsom's housing demands. So without further ado, here is the video. It's got 94 views, and I think 3 of them are me. California Values, housing justice. Hosted by Rob Bonta, the YouTuber.
California Values. We hear this phrase tossed around a lot.
Is that royalty-free background music, or is that AI generated? How's this working?
But what does it really mean? To me, California Values means creating opportunity for all, regardless of how you look, where you're from, who you love, or how much money you make.
Every word out of this jackass is a cliche.
It means making space for one another to succeed and knowing that there is enough space for us all. From standing up in courtrooms to...
I almost wish I knew how to use this audio software well enough that I could drown him out and raise up the background music, because I kind of like the background music. It sounds like my Sirius XM chill channel.
From standing up in courtrooms to serving in our communities to advocating...
Actually, you know what it sounds a little like? And maybe if I have time during commercial break, I'll pull this up. It sounds like a royalty-free version of Tangerine Dream's Love on a Train from the film Risky Business. And when you say love on a train, that's exactly what that scene was about.
From standing up in courtrooms to serving in our communities to advocating in the halls of the Capitol.
I swear that's what that sounds like.
California Values guide us in all we do at DOJ, including our efforts to take on one of the state's most pressing issues, the housing crisis.
Oh boy. We're fading out the sexy music to talk about housing.
Roughly 44% of Californians are renters, and more than half will spend more than a third of their income on rent.
Gee, when you hear LA talk about that number, there's people that say 10% of renters are paying 90% of their income towards rent, which, really?
After monthly bills, groceries, and gas, that leaves little to save to buy a home someday. But those who can...
Not to mention weed and booze and everything else.
But those who can entertain the idea of homeownership are faced with astronomical prices, as the statewide median home price is more than $900,000.
This is true. And while Rob Bonta tells you about all of the solutions that the state has put forth to lower that cost, just remember, Gavin Newsom has been in charge of this state for 7 years now. Bonta's been the AG for 5 years now. And the California legislature has had a supermajority for over a decade. Every single bill that they've ever wanted to pass to make it easier to build and make it cheaper to live here, they have. And they have been woefully ineffective.
And can be even higher in places like the Bay Area or Los Angeles.
Please, San Jose, what is in the median, like 2 million? I think it's the most expensive real estate market in the country right now.
It's unsustainable, unacceptable, and unjust.
Oh boy, 3 uns in a row. You go, Bonta.
And we can't fix it without addressing our extreme lack of housing. It's estimated that we need approximately 2.5 million new homes by 2030 to meet housing demand.
So how many of those can we cram into Huntington Beach?
Right now, we're falling far below the target, only building about 100,000 new homes each year. We've got to do better. But change won't happen overnight. There's no silver bullet, no one solution to a...
Although every time you hear some new solution, Gavin and the legislature touts it as the silver bullet. Whether it's, we're going to eliminate CEQA for this, we're going to eliminate CEQA for that. We've got SB 79, we've got SB 9, we've got SB 35. There's a lot of SBs and a lot of BS.
To a problem as multifaceted and complex as this. That's why in 2021, I launched DOJ's Housing Justice Team to monitor compliance across the state and task them with taking action when those laws aren't followed.
Bonta has an entire team that's designated to sue cities if they're not building their fair share of housing. Because equity means we got to build housing everywhere, even the places that don't have room for it. See that single-family home? That could be an apartment building.
So far, that's included enforcing laws that require local government to meet the housing needs of their communities and laws that facilitate housing production. And we've taken action all over the state, in places like Huntington Beach.
How did I know that was going to be the first place he shouted out?
In places like Huntington Beach, Norwalk, Woodside, Encinitas, Coronado, La Cañada, Flintridge, Fullerton, and Goleta. Together
Wait a second. Goleta? You mean like that little place north of Santa Barbara? What is the population of Goleta? It's a small place. Goleta has a population of 32,000. How much more housing do they need to build? There's nothing up there. It's a little past Santa Barbara while you're on your way to Buellton, a town with... How much housing does Buellton have to build in the Santa Ynez Valley? Because Buellton has a population of 5,000. So how much housing do they need to build? How many wineries do we got to shut down so we can build some more affordable housing in Buellton? Which, just an aside, when I was really into wine, our neighbors and I used to fantasize about buying a place up there. And that's when you could get a place in Buellton for like $300,000. Then COVID hit. And now Buellton's just as expensive as anywhere else, even though they're really, unless you're into wine, there's not really anything there for you to do.
Together with our state agency partners, our work has led cities across California to plan for more than 40,000 new units of housing. One great example of the kind of work DOJ's Housing Justice Team is doing to make all of this possible can be seen in our settlement with the city of Elk Grove.
And that is the subject of today's episode of Rob Bonta, Housing Justice Warrior, how the state of California sued Elk Grove to make sure that they approved a homeless shelter.
And who better to tell that story than the people who contributed to the case?
In the early parts of 2022, an affordable housing developer called...
But there are so many production values to this. They got multiple interviews. They've got a whole bunch of footage that I don't think is B-roll. How much did this video cost, I wonder?
In the early parts of 2022, an affordable housing developer called Accelerate Housing submitted...
Oh, I wonder how many government contracts they have. Accelerate Housing. See if I could figure out this group, because that's a very, very, very common name. But you just have to remember something as you hear this story. The term affordable housing doesn't mean that a developer builds tiny little shacks and rents them out for nothing. Affordable housing developer means subsidized housing developer, which means they're going to get paid no matter what. And now they have a guaranteed rate of return on whatever they build because the government, your tax dollars, whether through local programs funded through local nonprofits, state programs, or federal programs through Section 8, subsidize the rent. Which, if you think about it, as California has moved so much development towards, quote unquote, affordable housing or homeless permanent supportive housing, how much actual housing for the regular person are we building? I remember very specifically Eric Garcetti at a ribbon cutting of a homeless permanent supportive housing community, and he celebrated the fact that this development was in the pipeline to be market rate housing, but we said we can't do that, so we bought the development and we decided to subsidize it. But if you keep doing that to every new building that gets built, doesn't that mean that the supply of places for regular people to rent never actually goes up? Yet that's why the rent keeps going up. And you won't build single family one-story homes like this anymore because they're not cost effective. So the supply of these doesn't go up. So what do you know? The cost of renting keeps going up. The cost of single family homes keeps going up because these policies do not work.
Submitted an application pursuant to a state law called SB 35. That application...
This is, I think, another one of Scott Wiener. This was around the same time he had the ADU law, which is you could split your home into a fourplex if you want to. There was also SB 35.
That application envisioned 66 units of permanent, affordable, and supportive housing for individuals struggling with housing security and individuals living with disabilities.
So that's a fun way to say it's a homeless shelter. A permanent homeless shelter, which I don't understand the concept of. You know who else doesn't understand the concept of permanent supportive housing? San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan, who has built a whole lot of shelter, but isn't the whole idea that we get you off your feet, get all of your problems solved, and then you can go out into the world and sustain yourself? No. Not in the rest of California. We need thousands and thousands of units of permanent supportive housing because these people will never be able to get better and they'll be wards of the state.
The city of Elk Grove denied that project, and our position is that they denied that in violation of state law.
You know, when I heard that the Planning Commission had rejected the project, I was like, something doesn't smell right here. I sent an email to my local council member.
We found the one person that wants to live next to a homeless shelter, and she made it worse for everybody else.
And I recall, telling my...
By the way, is that discrimination? If neighborhoods don't want a homeless shelter in their neighborhood? We're not even talking about an apartment building. We're talking about a homeless shelter. You can call it permanent supportive housing all you want. It brings everything that the homeless bring with it. In every place you see one of these go up, you see blight and you see crime. Gee, I wonder why people don't want that.
And I recall, telling my council member in this email, please don't waste taxpayer money. The money that we're contributing to the city on something so frivolous and silly that you're going to end up losing. And it seems very obvious to me as just a resident of the city that this is a losing battle, that you're picking a fight you can't win. There wasn't really...
I'm going to narc on you to rob Bonta unless you approve that homeless shelter. How much is the population of Elk Grove? That's a small place. 182,000. And it's been slowly rising, but it's not like a massive expansion in population. By the way, this state's massive. It just seems really crowded because 20 million people live in Southern California.
There wasn't really anything else.
There's a whole lot of empty space out there that we could be building new communities and new housing. And there's that whole California Forever idea, transporting part of Solano County into a tech bro mecca. Don't we want to take them up on that? Because you say we need to build so much new housing. How about a new city? How about a new town?
There wasn't really anything else for me left.
How about we start not looking down upon the people that want to work remotely and find some place in the middle of the state that people can live cheaply and work in LA?
There wasn't really anything else for me left to do other than to report the city for what I felt was a pretty clear violation of housing law. I sent an email to the HCD Accountability Unit. They sent a letter to the city.
By the way, this documentary is pretty much glorifying tattletaling.
Basically outlining, you violated these laws.
And is this person just a concerned citizen, or does she have some connection with the affordable housing developer, which means they're getting guaranteed rate of return from the government?
You have an opportunity to correct the violation, or if you don't, one of the next steps could be that HCD would refer the case to the Department of Justice to be prosecuted, which is what ended up ultimately happening, unfortunately.
We've got a lot to go here as we discover this story that Rob Bonta is celebrating in a taxpayer-funded documentary talking about the time that the Department of Justice sued Elk Grove because they didn't want to build a homeless shelter in Old Town. 800-222-KABC is the phone number, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Bill in Irvine. Bill, hello. Bill? No Bill. Let's go to Ray in El Segundo. Ray, hello.
Hi. Yeah, all these, when you talk about a strong housing market, that means that we have a strong job market. And all these corporate developers and companies like a Blackstones and BlackRocks and all these guys, they're all funding these bills that are going through. They're even writing some of them and having Wiener put them through, and it's absolutely disgusting. What they want to do is they want to take away home ownership, make it so everything is rented. Rents go up with inflation over time. And if you look at a real solution to a housing problem, when I worked at Apple, we took accounting, customer service, some of the basic jobs. We moved them to Austin, Texas, where it's a lot cheaper. They can afford to buy a house, and it worked out great. So if we recruited industries inland where there's land, then people wouldn't have to commute into LA and they could have jobs. Then you'd create all new communities and it'd be fantastic. I mean, that's a real solution that you need to look around.
You're totally correct. Private equity is writing a lot of these bills that make it easier to build affordable housing, and they have bought 30% of the housing stock that's been sold this year. And what do they do with that? They turn it into rentals, making it even tighter. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. We will continue with Rob Bonta's documentary, how he successfully sued Elk Grove into approving a homeless shelter. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Okay, we've got Bill back. Bill in Irvine. Bill, hello.
Yeah, hey, Randy. This is just another example of the communists running California. As a tax-paying U.S. citizen and a resident of California, I have no problem with my tax dollars going to help people afford housing. But here's what I want to know. Why, I just heard this morning, why is it that the California state legislature and Gavin Newsom, why are they so obsessed with putting these developments in nice residential neighborhoods to bring those property values down? For example, Fairfax in Marin County, California. They're going to put a 6-story Section 8 housing development right in the middle of a residential area, which is that'll be the biggest structure in that town, and there's no reason for it. We have all this open space. They're obsessed with putting these homeless shelters and these affordable housing, which is Section 8 housing, in upscale residential areas where they're not needed and not wanted. And I don't know why they have to put these types of developments. And by the way, you're absolutely right. These developers, these structures that they're building are modern, nice buildings. The developers are getting full boat ride on all that money. All that money is going to the developers. And here's the other thing, Randy. You and I both know that these people who on these Section 8 housing, most of them never end up paying their reduced market rent rate. So what you end up having is people living for free. They become drug-infested areas of the community. They ruin communities when, if you're going to build these type of developments, put them out in new communities, out in the desert, put them up in the mountains. You don't need to cram them into nice neighborhoods, nice communities, and ruin those areas with housing that will not be they will not be respected. The people that live there will not respect the property, be it a homeless shelter or be it a Section 8 housing. Any place they put these developments have become disasters. And they know it. They know it. They don't care. They're communists. They want to destroy the best parts of California. And like Fairfax.
Unfortunately, I think you're right, Bill. We're out of time, but thanks so much for the call. I mean, look, this is the equity ideology. It's not fair to only have apartment buildings in downtowns. We need to share the burden everywhere. Every neighborhood needs to have low-income housing, even by the beach. And again, nothing wrong with low-income housing, but there's a big difference between low-income housing and subsidized homeless shelters that maybe a neighborhood doesn't want for totally legitimate reasons. We'll come back and listen to more of Rob Bonta's documentary, how he successfully sued Elk Grove into approving a homeless shelter. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222, your emails at randykabc@gmail.com, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. We're going through a video that Rob Bonta produced with your taxpayer dollars, kind of like a mini documentary for YouTube that only I have watched, that details how the Department of Justice successfully sued the city of Oak Park? No, I just had this city. How am I forgetting the city? It's the small city of Oak Park. Yeah, let's call it that. And they said, no, we don't want to build a homeless shelter in downtown, even though SB 35 says they can because it's affordable housing. And Bonta sued them to say they had to. Before we get back into the documentary, let's go to Ted in Latuna Canyon. Ted, hello. Elk Grove was it? Hey, Ted.
Yeah, how are you doing, Randy?
Doing great.
Here's the trip. You know, we elect these people. This is not a communist plot.
This is what? Oh, I think we lost him. Boy, he really had me hanging on there. Well, this is equity, and there is this ideology that is only fair.
Tonight, City Council members taking up the topic again of what is called the Oak Rose Apartment Project. This past May, Elk Grove was sued by Attorney General Rob Bonta.
They've chosen to stifle affordable housing.
Subsidized housing.
Projects discriminate against lower-income families.
Families or homeless people?
And knowingly violate state housing law. That's why alongside...
Which, by the way, this is how the laws have been written over the last few years. To accelerate the development of homeless slums that will inevitably get damaged and burned down, so we have to build even more, so the developers always have something new to build.
That's why alongside Governor Newsom and HCD, am announcing a lawsuit to require Elk Grove to approve the Oak Rose Supportive Housing Project and fall in line with the law.
Does anywhere else even have this concept of permanent supportive housing? Why would homeless shelters need to be permanent? Isn't the whole idea, well, let's... get them the care they need, so they can be productive members of society. And if they're so mentally ill that they will permanently not be able to re-enter society, maybe it's time to get that waiver from the federal government and rebuild the mental hospitals.
So we claimed that the city of Elk Grove violated 4 statutes when it disapproved the Oak Rose project. The first one is SB 35. That's section 65913.4 of the government code, but
we don't need to know the whole government code. Okay, Ted called back, and let's get him back on here. Ted in Latuna Canyon, round 2.
Hi, Randy. Look, we elected these people that are approving these Section 8 housing centers. There's a lot of money involved in this. First of all, with the developers, but the basic reason that they get passed is because of the tax dollars they bring into our government. I mean, they're trying every single way to get rid of Proposition 13 by putting side things. You know, you want your lights fixed on your street. That has to be a separate bond issue. I mean, I know you know about that, but there are several things that the people that we have elected on the city council and in the state government legislature, they want your taxes. And there is enormous money in Section 8 housing.
Incredible amounts of money, and also money that they can funnel to all of their nonprofit friends that then in turn use that money to give them campaign donations to stay in office. Thanks so much for the call, Ted. Appreciate it.
We'll refer to it as SB 35 for the sake of brevity. SB 35 creates a process that is streamlined and has to happen in a set time frame. Basically,
if it's quote unquote affordable housing, Section 8 housing, subsidized housing, nobody can say no to it. The state law says it goes to the front of the line, which then again, to my original point, if we're in the middle of a housing construction crisis, why aren't we building the kinds of housing that the non-homeless need, that can pay for with their salaries, that theoretically, if you build more of them and there's more supply of it, the rent would go down. If you built more modest single-family homes, the price of those would go down. Although if you're a homeowner, you don't necessarily want that now, do you?
Basically automates the approval of certain housing development projects so long as they meet certain criteria under state law.
And that criteria is it's going to be a 100% affordable, which actually means the government is subsidizing the developer so they can get Section 8 dollars from the federal government. This entire process needs to be reformed. We might be giving way too many people Section 8 than are really supposed to have it. I don't know what's going on here. And still they'll tell you, oh, not enough people are on Section 8. And so many landlords don't want to take Section 8 because you probably thought Section 8 was just for like pregnant teenage moms. Nope. It's for the homeless. If you're on hold, stay on hold. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. We'll continue with Rob Bonta's documentary, how he successfully sued Elk Grove and forced them to build a homeless shelter that they didn't want. 800-222-KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's go back to Rob Bonta's taxpayer-funded documentary on his YouTube channel, how he successfully sued Elk Grove so they could build more homeless shelters.
The Housing Accountability Act, which forbids the application of objective standards as a means for disapproving certain housing development projects. The non-discrimination in land use law, which prohibits localities from denying housing development projects on a discriminatory basis.
You know, this is what's funny about this fight about SB 79. The state already, through existing law, has wiped out zoning. But still, this state makes it impossible to build things, and even with every law they've passed in the last decade, it only gets more expensive to live here.
And the Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing statute, which requires local governments to affirmatively further fair housing, and importantly for this case, to take no action materially inconsistent with that obligation.
You must build slums. You must build homeless shelters. We're going to make you, and we're going to put them right next to single-family homes.
Supportive housing is housing that is meant for people who are homeless or at the risk of homelessness. It provides not only housing, but also supportive services.
And because we are a housing-first state, it also means you can bring your drugs in.
And Elk Grove denied the permit on the ground that in this particular area, they said this project has residential units on the ground floor. And in this area, it would be permitted as a mixed-use development, which means it's partly residential and partly commercial.
Yeah, this is technicalities. They were trying to find any way they could to kill this project because I'm going to imagine the city council of Elk Grove hearing from their constituents that they did not want this.
And they said because you've got residential units on the ground floor, it's not permissible. When in fact, what their code says is that you have to have some commercial on the ground floor. And this project also had commercial on the ground floor. It had the counseling services.
That's not commercial. That's not a Whole Foods. That's not mixed use. That's a homeless shelter.
Now, notably, there was another housing application in the same area of Elk Grove, and that housing application was for market rate housing. And that application had residential on the ground floor, but Elk Grove approved that.
So what's the allegation here? The city council of Elk Grove is like the city council of LA and they were on the take? We'll continue with Rob Bonta's fancy produced in-house documentary, How I Sued Elk Grove to Force Them to Build a Homeless Shelter. Permanent supportive housing. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's continue with Rob Bonta's self-produced documentary with your tax dollars so he could show everyone on the YouTubes how he sued Elk Grove to build a homeless shelter.
They just didn't approve the one for affordable housing. The case was divided up in two so that we would first litigate the violations of the housing production laws. And those, they go before the court on the record that already exists. So the court looks at what the city did and what the information that was in front of the city. And
why have city councils if cities don't have control over their zoning anymore? Isn't that like the most important job they have? Why are we paying these people? So I don't think the Elk Grove City Council makes a lot of money, but LA City Council makes $220K.
Says that they violated those housing production laws or not. Then in addition, we had these fair housing laws. Those require discovery. They require us to figure out what was going on with this other property and why the city did what it did and how it approaches other affordable housing projects.
This is what the Attorney General's office spends all of their time on. If you're wondering why they're not focused on organized retail theft, copper wire theft, or gangs.
So that takes longer. That was going to be the second phase of the trial. We hadn't gotten to either phase of the trial. We were preparing to go to court and tell the court why the city broke the law, but we settled before then.
Because Elk Grove is a small city and didn't have the time to deal with this, and the full weight of Gavin Newsom and Rob Bonta was too much for them to stand up against. Only one city has stood up against them, and that's Huntington Beach.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us today, Rob Bonta, California Attorney General. One of our messages.
By the way, it is so laughable that this is the guy that's the face of criminal justice in California. You know how compromised Rob Bonta is, whether it's the donations from the Dong family who have been indicted along with Shang Tao, the former mayor of Oakland, or the bizarre action that Rob Bonta took on behalf of tribal casinos to try to get the card rooms wiped out of existence and fantasy sports wiped out of existence. And who's his biggest donor lately? That's right, tribal casinos.
One of our messages today is whether you are Huntington Beach or Elk Grove, you have a duty and an obligation to follow the law of the state of California. You will remind
equity is everyone should be able to live on the beach. I don't know how exactly that works, but let me just remind you once again, because it is worth repeating. Every member of the state legislature has told you for a decade our number one problem is housing. Gavin said that when he ran for governor the first time. He said it when he ran for governor the second time. And even with a supermajority in every single bill that these people have passed, it has not worked. It has not increased the supply of building. It has not made housing cheaper. Might be time to get some new people in there. Thank you all so much for listening. We're going to be on live tomorrow, but only till 5:30 because then the UCLA game starts. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.